Hi, it's Steve from PartSelect. Today we're going to show you how to change the evaporator fan motor bumper on your refrigerator. It's a really easy job. All you need is a Phillips screwdriver and a 1/4" nut driver, small flat blade screwdriver, a pair of needle nose pliers, and a 5/16 nut driver. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, the first thing that we'll need to do is to pull the refrigerator out and disconnect the power. Simply pull the plug from the receptacle. Now our first step will be to open the freezer door and remove any items that are in the freezer, including on the ice cube tray. And then we're going to remove that holder for the ice cube trays. And to remove it, we'll need to lift it up enough to push it fully to the left to insert the 2 pins on the end of that shelf as far in as they'll go. And then we're going to bend it slightly to disengage it from a couple of T-pins on the top. Now we'll want to make sure that that's warm enough that it will bend easily. If it's frozen, you may run the risk of breaking it. So simply push it over far enough to clear those pins. And then you can lift it out and we'll set that aside. Next we're going to remove 2 Phillips screws that hold the evaporator fan cover in place. And we can lift up on that fan cover and then tilt it away at the top. Gently lift it off of the styrofoam block that is beneath it. We'll set that aside. Next, we're going to remove 2 Phillips screws from the front of the freezer floor. These screws are slightly longer than the 2 that held the evaporator fan cover in, just so you can distinguish between them. Now we'll get hold of a corner of that floor and tilt it up on the front. We need to disengage some hooks that fasten to the back of the evaporator cover. And then slide that out, set it aside. There's the 4 hooks that hook into the back of the evaporator cover. Now we're going to remove this styrofoam block. And take caution when pulling that up out of there. It just fits into the floor of the freezer as a friction fit. We'll set that aside. We'll now remove 2 Phillips screws from the upper corners. And then 2 1/4" hex head screws that secure the evaporator cover to the fan motor bracket. Now you can lift that evaporator cover out of the way and set that aside. Now with the evaporator cover off, we have access to the components. So our next step will be to disconnect the fan motor, depress the 2 locking tabs on the side of the wire connector, and disengage that. And with our needle nose pliers, we're going to remove the ground wire from the end of the evaporator mounting bracket. And then we'll remove 2 Phillips screws that hold that bracket to the back wall. You need to support that motor assembly when you're taking the last screw out. And now we can take the assembly and set it on a suitable work surface and complete our repair. Now with the assembly on a suitable work surface, we'll take a 5/16 nut driver and we'll loosen one of the 5/16 screws that secure the motor front bracket to the rear bracket. And then on the opposite side where the bumper is, we'll remove that one completely. And then we're just going to pivot that bracket enough that we can disengage the motor from the rear grommet. And that'll give you a little more clearance to pop that bumper out of the side bracket. Just pull what remains of the old bumper out. And then with the new one, we'll take the pointed end, line it up with that hole, and then we're just going to press it in to position. And once you have it lined up, just go to the opposite side of it and pull it the rest of the way through till it stays in position. Now we'll line the motor up with the rear grommet. And then we'll reinstall the 5/16 screw. And then we'll go to the other side and we'll tighten that one up. And now we're ready to reinstall the assembly in the refrigerator. Now to reinstall the motor assembly, we'll take one of those Phillips screws. Have that ready. We'll put one of the mounting screws in place and install the other one. Make sure that when you mount that you don't pinch the wire that goes to the defrost thermostat. We'll next connect the harness to the motor. Make sure the locking tabs engage. And reinstall the ground wire to the terminal on the mounting bracket. Next, we'll take the evaporator cover, slide that into position, and we'll secure it with the 2 1/4-inch hex head screws that hold it to the motor bracket. Then we'll replace the 2 screws in the upper corners. Next, we'll reinstall the styrofoam block. And again, take caution when inserting that into the opening. Now we can put the freezer floor back in. Make sure those 4 tabs engage the evaporator cover. They tuck in behind the cover, and then the lip of the floor will be across the front. And we'll put the 2 longer Phillips screws into the front of the freezer floor. We'll install the fan cover. Slide that down over the styrofoam block. And lift it up enough to engage the 2 hooks at the top of that cover. They hook it into the evaporator cover. Slide it down into place, make sure it's engaged at the top. The 2 screws for the tabs fit into the freezer floor. We'll secure those with the 2 remaining screws. shelf in for the ice cube trays. These two pins need to go into the upper portion of that slotted hole so that it allows the shelf to go tight up against the wall. And we will hook 2 slots on the top into the T-pins. And we can pull those 2 pins out and set them down in the bottom of those slotted holes. Now we're ready to load the freezer back up. Plug the refrigerator in, and our repair is complete. Told you it was an easy job. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your repair.